Hello, everybody. I say everybody because I'm hoping I am now live on YouTube as well as LinkedIn. So, hello. Right. So, welcome, everybody. So, this is my second attempt at streaming across YouTube and LinkedIn. I'm doing a little bit of experiment. On Monday, I did a LinkedIn event. Today, I'm streaming from my it's got subtitles to it as well. Didn't know that. I'm streaming from my personal LinkedIn account. I can see someone from LinkedIn. Hello. Iona, going for that one. Maybe wrong. I apologize. But great. Everybody can hear me. That's awesome. So whilst we wait, I think it usually takes, at least it takes the YouTube crowd a little bit of time to arrive in my experience. So whilst we're waiting for people to arrive, I said there's only a few of us on at the moment, but just tell me where you're from. Like, where are you from? Brian, you're back. I know where you're from. Iona. That's what I'm going for. Where are you coming in from? Let me know where you're from. Brian, I'm thinking you're from the States, right, Brian? Tell me I'm right. Oh, Kathy's here from Oregon. Excellent. Welcome, Kathy from Oregon. Thank you for joining. I do seem to think you're from the States, Brian. I'm sure you've told me this before. I can't quite remember. We have Salta from the Czech Republic. Do you know what? You might be my first person ever from the Czech Republic. That's so exciting. Oh, and you're from Romania. Ah, wonderful. Tell me how to pronounce your name phonetically as well. I don't want to keep getting that one wrong. Tell me, lady from Romania, how do I pronounce your name so that I don't embarrass myself any more than I usually do? We've got from California, Itishri. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that, but I'm going to go with Itishri. Yeah, that sounds better coming off my tongue anyway. Itishri. Okay, so it's been Prime Day, everybody. So before I give my big spiel, I do wonder how the subtitles in LinkedIn is going to cope with spiel. But before I do that, I got that right, Itishri. That's so exciting. Before I go into my usual stuff, it was Prime Day. Did anybody buy anything cool on Prime Day? I would love to know. Brian, you are from the States. I did get that right. I couldn't quite remember exactly what state you were from, but at least I got it right that you're from the States. So Prime Day. Anybody get anything good on Prime Day? Apparently the deals were very big this year. I had to stay away from Prime Day because I'm high risk when it comes to Prime. I'll buy all sorts of things that I don't need to buy on Prime Day. Toilet paper is usually my favorite. You can get great value toilet paper on Prime Day. So I stayed away from Prime Day this year. Any of you guys buy anything cool? Anything good? Toothbrushes, electric toothbrushes. Did you know that is usually the biggest seller every year on Prime Day? Electric toothbrushes. Who knew, right? Who knew? All right, so it doesn't look like you guys have got anything cool on Prime Day then. You've got a shark, Kathy. I know it's sad that I got that excited, Kathy, but I too am a shark owner. I moved over from a Dyson. I had a Dyson for many, many years, and then I moved over to shark. Best thing ever. I love my shark. In fact, I wish I had two sharks, one for upstairs and one for downstairs. So if that's your first one, Kathy, you will never go back. I promise you. Love sharks. And some kayaking supplies. Yay, up the sharks. Isn't it strange that you've come here and you're having conversations about vacuum cleaners, or hoovers as we would call them here in the UK? I don't know if that works in the US. Do you call them hoovers or do you call them vacuum cleaners? Anyway, so Kathy is the only person who bought anything on Prime. Oh, I wish I'd known there was a Prime deal actually on sharks, Kathy. I'm kicking myself now. All right, so let's get going in case anybody else drops off for fear that this is the wrong stream. So I'm Gigi. I am the Amazon interview whiz. Hopefully you guys know that. You found me either through YouTube or via LinkedIn. I was a senior leader in Amazon for many years, and most particularly and relevant to you guys, I was a bar raiser. So I bar raised thousands of hours. I hired hundreds of Amazonians across tech and non-tech in many, many different countries around the globe. I do know exactly what it takes to get hired at Amazon. I now run my own Amazon interview preparation academy, where I've tried to make accessing expertise like mine that you could easily pay $500 an hour for. I discovered a coach the other day that was charging that at very accessible prices by effectively creating a digital course at my Amazon Interview With Academy. And I'll tell you a bit more about that later because I'm going to offer you a freebie. But my mission is Amazon interview expertise for all, which is why I have my academy, but also I have a very extensive YouTube channel. And of course, I do these free Q&As for you guys twice every week. So some housekeeping then. I will not be able to answer very specific technical questions. I am obviously an expert in the Amazon leadership principles and interview strategy, but there are about 300 odd different job families in Amazon, and I cannot be a technical expert in all of those. So I'm not going to be answering specific technical questions. Please don't just say, I've got an interview about a program manager role. Can you give me some advice? Because yes, I have about 2.5 hours worth of advice all on my YouTube channel. So go there. And I think that's about it. Let me just make sure I haven't forgotten anything. Oh, yes. Couple of other things then. You guys on YouTube, which seems to be the majority of you, please do remember to like and click the thumbs up and put comments in the stream. It means the algorithm will know there's good stuff happening here and lift it higher up in terms of visibility, and I would appreciate that. I also do have super stickers enabled if you'd like to make sure that I see your question, or if you'd like to just give me a little thank you, that would be wonderful. And then finally on YouTube, I have enabled you guys to get access to PDF versions of the entire channel. I've written down all of the content in the channel in PDF so that you can download it and you don't have to write it down yourself. So you can find the link to that in the descriptions. All right, so with that said, looks like a bit of a quiet day today. So usually I go for an hour, but it depends on how many questions we have and how many people arrive. So why don't we get started? I'll just read the questions. Anybody on LinkedIn as well as YouTube, just type your questions into the comments box and I'll work my way through. Excuse me, I have a bit of an itchy nose. All right, so let's start with you, Brian. Oh, Brian, a super sticker. Thank you very much for my super sticker. So the mistake or failure question, I'm literally about to post a video on YouTube for that this evening, but I haven't done it yet. So aren't you actually demonstrating that you weren't right a lot? Or does the fact you learn from it demonstrate the LP? So let me put that up there. So yes, you are demonstrating that you aren't right a lot, but right a lot is right a lot. It's not right every single time, Brian. So Amazon recognizes that everybody is going to make mistakes once in a while. So that's fine to demonstrate that you are not right all of the time. So what they're trying to understand in the failure question is related to the "are right a lot" leadership principle. They want to understand, what was it that you weren't right about in the first place? Because they're going to be thinking about kind of when you do make mistakes, what's the driver of that mistake? Kind of, was it a teeny little tick box that you forgot to tick? Or is it something a bit larger where lots of people gave you really good advice and you refused to listen to it? That's quite different in terms of how you made the mistake in the first place. And then obviously, and the far more important part is that they are looking to understand, how do you recover? How do you make good decisions, right decisions to get yourself out of the situation and get yourself to a point where not only have you maybe recovered from that situation, but also, and most importantly, what have you done to belts and braces the situation so that, number one, you don't make the same mistake again, and number two, that anybody that comes after you, if whether you're still there or if you've left the company 5 years ago, but that no one who comes after you makes the mistake that you did. So that's what they're looking for. How did you get yourself into it in the first place? How did you get yourself out of it? And then how did you make sure that no one else ever falls into the same trap again? Okay, I hope that was helpful, Brian. Thank you for the question. We're going to see what else we have here. Oh, okay. There's another question from you, Brian. So I'll take that. We've still got people arriving, so that's good. How is it viewed? I think you mean viewed. If your story is a little off from the question, but it hits the LP. It's a good question, Brian, because the main point about asking you the question is indeed to get to the leadership principle. I'll kind of say they're not really interested in the answer to the question. They are, but more importantly, they're interested in the answer to the question because that should feed them the evidence from the leadership principle. So if your answer to the question is ever so slightly different to the form of the original question, but you're still very much talking about the leadership principles and they're getting all of the data that they need, in most cases, your interviewer will just let you go, let you fly with it because they're still getting the data that they need. Sometimes, or more often than I would have liked, candidates will answer with a different question to the question, and actually they're not providing the leadership principle information that I'm looking for. So when that happens, on a number of occasions, I've had to stop candidates and remind them what the original question was and ask them, do they actually have an answer for the original question? So I would just be a little bit cautious, Brian, about answering a question with a different answer. If you're really confident that it's still completely focused on the leadership principle, then you can kind of smartly get yourself there without it looking like you've completely ignored the question and decided to answer a question that you've made up in your own mind. You'll be fine. But do make sure that there's some kind of a link between what you were asked and what you choose to answer, because there's probably nothing more irritating for an interviewer than to discover that the candidate is effectively conducting their own interview and answering questions they were never asked. But as long as you're hitting LPs, in the most case, you should be fine. Okay, thank you for that one, Brian. Let's see what else we have. Okay. Ooh, a big jump there. So just making my way past Kathy's Shark vacuum cleaner. Tyrone, welcome. Welcome back, Tyrone. I'm sure I recognize you, so welcome back. Steve Hodgson, welcome back. Lovely to see you again. Okay. Shabnam, hello Shabnam, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I've definitely not seen your name before because I went to school with someone called Shabnam and I would definitely remember you if I'd seen you before. So welcome to the Amazon Interview Wiz free coaching. Let's see, what's your question? Is there any spacing recommendations for the writing assessment? Oh, let me just put that up here. I keep forgetting that. No spacing recommendations. So I think where you're getting to here is because you've got 2 pages maximum. You don't have to fill both of the 2 pages. You just need to do something that is readable and intelligible. Amazonians write their documents in Calabri 10 or 11. That's just a standard business practice. Not because Calabri 10 or 11 is any better than Times New Roman, but that's just simply the font that everybody uses and is used to reading. So I guess if we're talking about the aesthetic of your writing sample, that would be really the one recommendation that I would make, is put it in Calabri 10 or 11, and the brain and the eyeballs of the person reading it is going to be very, very familiar with that font. In terms of spacing, all you need is just something that's readable. Just if you only need one side for your information with just normal level spacing, then just stick it into the one side. Don't try and use lots of spacing to bleed the whole thing over into 2 sides. It's not necessary. I hope that answered your question. Cool. Okay, guys on YouTube again, please don't forget to like the stream so that YouTube knows some good stuff is going on here. Okay, so what else do we have? Yes, okay. Shall we talk about this then, Steve? I'm glad you raised this. It just gives me a chance to mention it. So you've got your first interview tomorrow. Cool. Because you've been through one set already, if I remember rightly, Steve, I think. And you've been refreshing your memory on the hidden leadership principle. Very good. Very good. So I'm amazed. Genuinely, I'm amazed that more people or coaches don't tell people about this alternative star structure, because it's so valuable. So if you haven't seen my YouTube video on the Amazon leadership principle no one's telling you about, or the hidden Amazon leadership principle, I forget what I've renamed the thumbnail. This is how it goes. So you all know situation, task, action, result. That's very, very common. Everybody tells you to do that. Well, what I'll tell you is to add on to it an I, which is for improvement. And the reason why I tell you you should add an I for improvement onto the end of it is because many years ago, and you'll understand the hook in a second, there was a leadership principle called vocally self-critical. Now that got wrapped up into earn trust to make room for frugality, I think it was frugality. Anyway, got wrapped up in another leadership principle. However, it was a leadership principle in unto itself for so long that the majority of Amazonians, even those who joined the organization when it wasn't its own leadership principle, still talk a lot about this idea of being vocally self-critical. And that's about being able to look back at yourself, or look in the moment at yourself, and see and be able to be aware of where you could improve. And that's really to enable growth and self-development. It's a key skill, regardless of whether you're in Amazon or anywhere else, to be able to look at your own strengths and weaknesses and identify how you could grow. So that is a phrase, vocally self-critical, that is used daily throughout Amazon. And it is definitely something that interviewers are looking for. People that can reflect on their own performance, their own delivery, their own achievements, and ask themselves and challenge themselves, what could I have done better? And it's those people that can show and articulate that they are able to look at their own achievements, even if they're brilliant, and still be hungry for improvements that really impress the interviewer. So when you are formulating your answers, I suggest situation, task, action, result, improvement. So what could you have done better, even on a great project, to get an even better result? And then secondly, and this would be the cream on the top of the icing, is that right? The cherry on the icing, that's more right. How, if you did learn anything, if you made mistakes and you learned from it, how have you applied those learnings to future projects? If you can answer each of your questions with situation, task, action, result, improvement, what I could have done better, improvement, how I took those learnings and applied them to projects moving forward, that is pretty much the perfect answer. So thank you for raising that, Steve. That I hope is going to be very helpful for a whole bunch of people. And Brian, you've got your loop tomorrow. It's not a Friday, it's a Thursday. Good luck for your loop tomorrow. Okay, so Kathy. Okay. All right, so this is a bit of a trick question or a trick answer, really, Kathy. So what do I recommend for reaching out to recruiters after you submit an application? Any tips for finding the right recruiter to contact? So there are a bazillion squillion, I think there's over 3,000 recruiters in Amazon. So I think you're going to have a very hard time trying to work out who the exact recruiter is behind a particular job ID, unless the recruiter themselves have posted the job ID. So if you're just applying through the portal because you saw the job ID on the jobs page, or maybe on an external jobs page, you're never going to find the recruiter. You're not going to be able to follow up with them. There's nothing you can do. If you have seen a job posted on somewhere like LinkedIn by a specific recruiter, then the first thing to do, I would suggest, is Tell them you're interested. Reach out to them. Explain to them why you're interested, what you're looking for in your job search, why it is that Amazon is an organization you're interested in. They will probably almost certainly simply direct you to the jobs board because that is the correct process flow that they need to go through when managing applications. Everybody has to go through the front door. But once you have submitted your application, it's worth going back to that recruiter and just letting them know you have submitted your application and you look forward to hearing about what the next steps are. They deal with so much volume. I think you might struggle to build up that kind of backwards and forwards engagement with them, but certainly letting them know that you have submitted your resume, CV, through that process so that they know to look out for it is definitely a good step. I hope that was helpful, Kathy. Okay. Techie. Hello, Techie. I think I know you, Techie. Seen that name before. So your job description has a phrase, enjoys coaching team members. Does this resemble any leadership principle? Yes, it is hire and develop the best. So go and have a look at the hire and develop the best leadership principle description on the Amazon website. It's also on my website, which is amazoninterviewwiz.com, but it might be easier for you to find it on the Amazon website, or you could just Google Amazon leadership principles, and there's a basquillion different websites that will come up. And have a look at the hire and develop the best leadership principle. You're going to want to talk to that. If they particularly call it out in your job description, it means that it's going to be an important leadership principle to be able to talk about at your interview. Okay. Moving on then. Oh, you're not seeing the PDF, Kathy. There's a link to it. It's written in the description. There's a link to Buy Me a Coffee. No, is it Buy Me a Coffee? Yes, Buy Me a Coffee. That's the website where the PDFs are hosted. Okay, moving on then. Oh, okay. Here we go. I think you said it was Ione, so I'm going to go for that. So you're an intern SDE at Amazon in Romania. Cool, very, very big growing space there in Romania. You want to try next year at Amazon, but in the USA. There are differences. Is it more difficult? Are there more candidates? I can't give you exact data on the ratio of placements to candidates in the different countries around the world. Obviously, there are going to be more people in the USA, just by the size of the country, who want to apply for Amazon, but I'm going to assume that there are equally and maybe proportionately the same number of roles coming up. So whether the ratio of roles to candidates is materially different between the USA and Romania, I couldn't tell you. In terms of the actual process itself, it's exactly the same globally. So it's not more difficult to get into Amazon anywhere in the world because they're all recruiting against the same standard. And you're not really competing with any other individual for a role. You are competing against the standard. So everywhere in the world, you'll be going through exactly the same process. Everywhere in the world, you're going to be trying to prove that you are at the same standard as anywhere else in the world. Shouldn't, statistically speaking, mean it's materially more difficult. Now, the only barrier that you might come up against is just around your eligibility. Sorry, that's the word I was looking for. Your eligibility to work in the USA. I know that far less roles in the USA now are being opened up to candidates internationally because of what's gone on, I believe, over the past 12 months. If you want to be able to hire someone in the USA, but hire them from outside of the USA, you do have to, and I think the same is true in Europe, you have to be able to prove that you can't make that hire in the US. And I think that's quite hard to prove now, given how many candidates are now on the market. So I think that's probably the only incremental difficulty that you might experience looking between Romania and to move to the US. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Shabnam, I just want to check. Okay, so Shabnam, you're still asking me about your writing assessment. So you're trying to follow the STAR method for the writing assessment. Is it okay to add a title or a quick summary beforehand? Yeah, I think it probably is. You don't want to rewrite the whole thing twice, obviously. When you say a quick summary, you are really only going to want to do maybe 4, 5 lines at most, just to summarize exactly what the reader can anticipate reading in the full version. But there's no reason why you can't put yourself in a little summary at the beginning. Just make sure it's a little one. You don't want to write the same thing twice, because that's the complete opposite of the purpose of that document. The purpose of that document is to be able to show that you can write clearly, specifically, economically, and take the reader from a story from beginning to end coherently with clarity and good data points. So if you write the summary too big, then you duplicate it and you clearly counter represent all of those things I've just described. Well, maybe not all of them, but some of them. Okay. Catherine, I'm glad you like Starry. It's one of my big tips that people do tend to like. My second big tip that people tend to like is always write down the question. That's another golden nugget for you today. All right, so guys on YouTube, once again, please do like the video so that we get a bit better visibility. JJ, welcome back, JJ. Ah, okay, JJ. So you've got 2 similar roles on the same team, and so far you've made your way through the process on both. Awesome. Do you recommend deciding on the role you would prefer? Both are very similar. Are split loops common? JJ, it depends what you mean by common, but do split loops happen enough that they're very familiar to me and all other Amazonians? Yes. I mean, it's not a rare occasion, put it that way. So you don't need to decide until you need to decide. So go through your process end to end for both those roles. Looks like they're doing the right thing and consolidating up the process so that you've got a split loop. Consolidating up the process so that you only do one interview but have different people from those different teams all represented on that interview. What might happen is, together as a group, they might actually decide that they feel that you're a better fit for one of the roles rather than both of the roles. And they may offer you just one of the roles because they feel you're a better fit for that one. They're not necessarily always going to be able to or want to offer you both. Now, if the one that they offer you is not the one that you would prefer, you should definitely take the opportunity to say to your recruiter, actually, I would have preferred the other role. Is there a reason why you guys have chosen to offer me this one rather than the other one? Or you might want to walk a little bit more on eggshells and ask more broadly if they offer you one and not the other. Can you tell me why you've chosen to offer me this one rather than the other role? Based on the response to that question, you then might want to show your cards and say, actually, I would have preferred the other role. Or based on the response to that question, you might just think, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And then you can move forward with that offer for that particular role, whether you choose to or not, obviously entirely up to you. Good luck. Fingers crossed for you, JJ. Okay. Cool. Steve, I did remember rightly. I'm proud of myself. I'm always proud of myself when I remember these things, bearing in mind how many people I come across. Okay. So what else do we have? Yeah, I'm just flashing this picture up, Brian, because I actually can't answer that question. 20% seems from, yeah, so loop to offer for AWS, somewhere 20%. I think that's a bit low, to be honest with you, Brian. AWS have very high, kind of strong processes high up the funnel. So by the time a candidate has made it through to final loop in AWS, I mean, obviously there are many different roles, software development engineers, business development, salespeople, etc., etc., etc. But by the time they've made it all the way through, they're pretty strong candidates. So I would say 20% is a bit low. I can't tell you specifically for AWS. In general, in my experience, in both hiring as a hiring manager and hiring as a bar raiser, the number tended for me to be a bit more along the lines of 30 to 50%, depending on the seniority of the role and the type of skill set. So I think 20% is a bit low. I would have imagined for AWS, it's more along the lines of somewhere between 30, 35, 45, something along those lines. But that type of data is really very hard to get to and through in the organization. Really, I'm not even sure anyone's going to be tracking that. Not at AWS level anyway. Okay. Hey, Techie. No, the Amazon interview question bank is not available online. It is the intellectual property of Amazon, which is why I don't publish it. There are other ex-Amazonians who do what I do, who feel fine sharing that information. There are obviously lots of candidates who go to interviews and then publish that information on places like Glassdoor. I'd be pretty cautious about some of the questions that get published and some of the questions that are touted out as being the top Amazon interview questions. I do have a video on that on my YouTube channel because some of it is just from the sublime to the ridiculous. But the actual specific Amazon interview question bank is not available, and I do not share it because it is the intellectual property of Amazon. But if you can put a sensible hat on your head, Techie, and have a look at the questions that are broadly published on the web, you can probably take a pretty good guess at the ones that are likely to be Amazon interview questions and the ones that are also probably Amazon interview questions, but not the ones that everybody gets asked, or those that are ridiculous questions that nobody in their right mind would possibly ask at an Amazon interview. You just have to have a sensible hat on your head. Okay, thanks, Techie. Okay. Hey, Henry. So you had your loop last week and the recruiter told you it went well, but the hiring manager wants to meet you one more time. She needs more data points to make a final decision. Should you prepare new stories or reuse? Okay, so if she has to meet you again to get more data points to make a final decision, either she needs to ask different questions, follow-up questions than the follow-up questions that were asked the first time round, or she needs new stories. If you have new and good stories, then it's definitely worth preparing them because she wants more data. So if you can provide more data with new and fresh stories, that's going to be a win. That said, I know that is quite difficult sometimes because you've probably brought all of your best stories to the process already, having gone all the way through to loop. So just have a think about, and I coach in my interview preparation masterclass, asking yourself the follow-up questions that you think you would ask if you heard someone's story. Sometimes that's a little bit difficult because, you're a little bit too close to it. So it's worth finding a friend or a colleague, someone who's got some type of commercial and interview experience, and asking them to ask you questions that come to their mind when they listen to or read your stories, because that can help you anticipate what type of follow-up questions your hiring manager might be asking you. So try and do a bit of both. See if you can get some new stories in there, but also reflect on your previous stories and ask yourself or someone else for you questions that perhaps you weren't asked the first time round, but seem like likely questions when one hears or reads that story. Okay, I hope that helps. JJ, okay. Which leadership principle best fits ambiguity questions? It's usually our right a lot, sometimes bias for action, but usually our right a lot. The idea of our right a lot is having to make decisions in voids, vacuums of data when you don't really know what's happening or you don't really have information to help you make decisions. That's kind of the concept of dealing with ambiguity. So usually it's focused on our right a lot. Okay. What else do we got? Oh, Brian, you're full of questions today. Let me just jump down, make sure that I'm not missing anything. So, Brian, for the writing sample, is the story measured just for the ability to write, or will they evaluate for LPs? Both, actually. I mean, its primary function is around assessing your ability to write. So quite often candidates ask me if they can reuse a question that they want to use in their interview process, because it's a great example. Invent and simplify tends to be a question that people choose in the writing sample options. In which case I say yes, really, because the main purpose of the writing sample is to test whether you can write. But if the team are talking about a leadership principle in the debrief and they are searching for data, if you happen to have talked about that leadership principle as part of your writing sample, they will, and you haven't mentioned it in interview, the hiring manager and the bar raiser are the people who are required to read the writing sample. Others are not required, although sometimes do. If they've read it and the leadership principle and the behaviors you demonstrated in your writing sample are pertinent for the leadership principle conversation they're having in debrief, they will probably mention it. But its primary function is to see whether you can string a sentence together. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Right. Okay. Hello, Shripad. How are you? Welcome, welcome. So you've done 2 rounds and they've covered 4 leadership principles. Yes, that would make absolute sense. One with the HM and the other with someone in the support. Okay. Any idea on when the bar raiser round will happen? 5 rounds in total. Right, so Shupad, I'm not sure if you're telling me that you are at Loop and you have 5 interviews at Loop and you've done 2, or whether you're telling me you've done phone screen 1/round 1, then round 2, and then you're expecting 3 subsequent ones. That wouldn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'm going to assume, I'm just skimming down to the bottom to see if you said anything. I'm going to assume you're telling me you're at Loop and you've already had 2 of the interviews for Loop. I consider Loop a round in unto itself, and you've got 3 left. So if that's the point, then no, I have no idea when your bar raiser will pop up their head. There's no particular order that interviews happen in Loop. It's not like the bar raiser always goes first, second, third, fourth, or fifth. It's just when they can fit into people's schedules. So you've had the hiring manager, you've had someone from the support team, your bar raiser could be any one of the following 3. That's it. So it will be one of the next following 3. I don't know what else to say to that. Okay. Chris, so how does the telephone interview vary from face-to-face interview? I don't think anyone's doing telephone anymore. I think you're probably just meaning the chime process. So it doesn't. It's exactly the same thing. So it's just terminology. Excuse me 1 second. I just need some water. So in the old days, you know, back when I first started 6 years ago, pretty much it was a first telephone call where we weren't really using solutions like Chime. That wasn't, I know it's hard to believe that these type of Zooms and Microsoft Teams and Chimes were not huge back then, but they weren't. So you would have a first phone screen, a second phone screen, and then you would have an on-site. Now, obviously now the world has changed completely and almost all interviews are happening over Chime, whether they are final stage interviews or whether they are early stage interviews. Unfortunately, the language, excuse me, hasn't caught up, and I am as guilty as anybody else for calling an early round a phone screen, even though it's not a phone screen and you're on Chime. So they don't differ at all in any way, shape or form. Every single Amazon interview is exactly the same as the previous one and is exactly the same as the next one in terms of its structure. Sometimes you'll have more technical questions in one or the other, but broadly speaking, someone's going to talk to you. They're going to do something to try and establish your technical skills and knowledge, usually early in the earlier rounds. And then they're going to ask you about the leadership principles. That's it. So no difference in the actual interview process, methodology in the actual point of interview, regardless of whether you're top funnel or bottom of the funnel. I hope that's helpful, Chris, and thank you for joining from LinkedIn. It's very exciting to see someone from LinkedIn. Okay. Oh, you're gone, you're back, you're gone. Okay, Chris. Can you show evidence on the Chime app, upload documents, or show via video? Technically, you can't upload documents onto Chime as a platform, or at least you couldn't the last time I used it. Show via video, well, you can share your screen in the way that you can share screen with any of these other video conferencing platforms, and you could play a video on your screen. You just need to make sure that it's appropriate. It's not very usual in an Amazon interview that you would be asked to read a document for a candidate or watch a video from a candidate. Now, there are some interviews where candidates are asked to do things live, like do business studies or build code for the SDEs, but those are very particular requirements for those interviews, and they, as candidates, will be prepped for that by their recruiter. So just check with your recruiter before you start thinking about sharing that way or doing anything like that, to make sure that it is actually appropriate for your particular job family and interview experience. Okay. Okay, so the question from you, Catherine, welcome. Is there a downside for applying for more than one role at the same time? So, let me just pop you up there. No and yes. So we'll start with the no. If you are applying for multiple roles but the same skill set, so let's say you're a program manager, and a program manager is an incredibly transferable skill set. You can program manage anything. You want to join Amazon, you want to join as a program manager. It seems perfectly reasonable and perfectly credible that you should apply for multiple different program manager roles around Amazon. If a recruiter sees that, they'll see very clearly, Catherine wants to be a program manager and she wants to be a program manager in Amazon. My job is a program management job. I see no reason why I shouldn't consider, all other things being equal, Catherine to be reasonably applying for my role. Where no comes into it is if you start to just appear to be throwing out and making applications all over the place for roles that don't really tell a coherent story about you, your skill set, and your focus. So if you were to apply, let's say, for a loss prevention manager role, a vendor manager role, a finance manager role, so on and so forth, when the recruiters for any one of those individual roles looks at Hire, which is the internal system, and they can see all of the roles that you're applied for, they're going to look at that and go, I'm not sure Catherine really wants to be a program manager, because she's applied for a vendor manager and she's applied for a loss prevention manager. And I really want someone who really wants to be a program manager. So I'm potentially going to pass on Catherine this time. So multiple applications, fine, but you really do need to be making those multiple applications in one particular area if you want the recruiter to believe that you really want to do that job. Because if you're doing it across multiple different skill sets, they're going to lack confidence that you're really committed to that particular role. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Hey, Rashmi, welcome, welcome. So which leadership principles should an L4 concentrate more on? It's not about the level, Rashmi. It's all about the role that you are applying for. So you need to get the job description of the role that you are applying for, and you need to go through it with your pen and your pencil, with literally on a line-by-line basis, and try and read the language and see if you can connect it conceptually to the leadership principles. I promise you the most important leadership principles for any given role are definitely written there in the job description. We did have one earlier, which was up there talking about supporting and teaching team members. I think it was a little bit earlier. That's written in the job description. So whoever wrote that is very clearly thinking about needing the person who comes into this role to be strong and hire and develop the best. So you just need to go through your job description and see if you can link together the words that the hiring manager has written and the concepts of each of the leadership principles. And that will give you guidance in terms of which ones to prepare for your particular interview. But it's completely job specific. It's completely level agnostic. Hey, Techie. So you're interviewing for an SDE1, cool. So I'm going to direct your eyes, Techie, to the gentleman 1, 2, 3 steps below you, Vivekanand, who is an ex-Amazonian. He worked at Amazon for 12 years, no longer works there, but is a very experienced software engineer. Connect with him on LinkedIn. He is a font of knowledge, so he would be a good person to be connected to. A very lovely man as well. So you're an SDE1, so that's pretty junior, and you don't have experience with hiring people. That would totally make sense. But you have academic examples where you've helped a project team member. Can you include that? Yes, absolutely. So in the most part, the ideal is to answer Amazon behavioral questions with professional experience, because obviously they're trying to understand how you behave in a professional context. And that works for people like me who are old and have been working for well over 20 years. I know I don't look it, but it's true. Whereas people like you, Techie, where you're new into the workplace, they totally understand that you just don't have that many examples to pull from, or indeed you haven't been a hiring manager. So bringing to the table examples where you've supported project team members is a perfect solution. You can still talk about how you behaved. You can still talk about how you worked with them. You can still talk about how they reacted. All of those things, that's exactly what they would usually look for in terms of behaviors for hiring develop the best. But for you, contextually, you're going to go back to school and pull that data from there. Perfect. Absolutely correct. Look at the leadership principle, see about the behaviors that it describes, and then really think about that project team member and how you demonstrated those behaviors with that project team member. Okay. Okay, Henna, sorry, I think I just covered this off, Henna, broadly speaking. Is answering without a specific career example considered absolutely lethal? No. Certainly not in the context that we were just talking about with Techie, where he doesn't have much career experience to pull from. If it was me with my decades of work experience, then a hiring manager is probably going to be wondering, the bar raiser is probably going to be wondering why I wasn't able to bring to the table a specific work version of that leadership principle. Now, if I did something volunteer wise, which is maybe extracurricular, but still kind of contextually working with people and managing people and delivering things, that would be fine, because that's still a professional example. Even if it's not my direct career, a professional example would be equally appropriate. But as a random example for you, Henna, if I started talking about the netball team that I coached, which by the way, I don't, but I just made that up. If I was to start talking about the netball team that I coached in terms of hire and develop the best with a 23-year professional background, then yes, that probably would be lethal for me. So it's that balance between how much experience do you have to be able to pull from in order to give your hiring manager confidence that the reason why you're not pulling from your experience is because you just don't have enough experience behind you. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Yeah, okay, Bob. Hello, welcome, Bob. Lovely to see you. Thank you for joining. So you didn't raise the bar on your on-site, but your recruiter has given you an offer for a level down. Is this common? Yes, down leveling is quite common in Amazon. I mean, the truth is roles in Amazon tend to have a pretty big scope compared to their equivalents in other organizations. So quite regularly, candidates that on paper look like they should be performing at the same level that they are applying for in Amazon, when actually they come in and they start talking about the scope and the complexity of the work that they've done in the past, it materializes that that scope and complexity doesn't quite match the scope and complexity of the role in Amazon. But if they really like the candidate and they see really, really great value in them, they will quite often, rather than reject them out of hand, down level either the role, which sometimes happens. If a hiring manager loves you that much, they might sometimes agree to de-scope the role and take some elements out so that it matches the lower level. Or they'll go and see if they can find you another role at the down leveled level, because they think that you'd be great in Amazon at that level. So yes, it's a pretty common experience. Good luck. Fingers crossed for you, Bob. I hope that that role opens up for you in the future. And by the way, raising the bar at any level in Amazon is a pretty impressive feat. So I don't know if you are feeling downhearted at all by that experience, but please don't. To be given an offer and told that they want you in Amazon at pretty much any level is something to be proud of. So congratulations. It is a great achievement. Okay. So what else do we have here? Okay. Salary negotiation. Okay. This is always a fun topic. Anything wrong with negotiating the base salary with the recruiter, asking whether they can match the salary of a competing offer? So Amazon don't do salary. What they do is a total compensation package. And I don't know your specific circumstances, Jasir, and whether it's a like-for-like comparison, but you should definitely focus on the bottom line number, if you like, because those packages are usually structured slightly differently. In Amazon, you'll be offered a base pay. You'll probably, depending on the level that you're coming in at, be offered a sign-on bonus. And then you'll be offered a certain number of restricted share units, RSUs. And those RSUs will be based on the current share price value. And they'll add them all up. And at the bottom will be your total compensation offer. Now, you should compare that number with the number that this alternative organization is offering you, because that's really the numbers you should be comparing. Because what you will find on Amazon is that the base salary may not be as strong as your competitive offer, but the total compensation will be as strong, if not stronger. If you really want to negotiate on that total compensation level when it comes to Amazon, my best guidance for you is to really focus on the RSUs element Amazon tends to be much more willing to negotiate on RSUs rather than on base and sign-on bonus, because of course base and sign-on bonus are hard values that are going to flush through the P&L, whereas the RSUs are kind of like a promise of future value. And of course RSUs can go up. I mean, obviously they can go down as well. You make your own judgment about what direction the Amazon stock is going to go in. But your RSUs could potentially be worth much more in 2 years' time, whereas your base salary is your $1 today is always going to be worth less in 2 years' time simply because of inflation. So yes, you can definitely negotiate. You should look at that bottom line rather than just focusing on your base salary. And if you do feel you want to negotiate, my guidance anyway would be to negotiate on the RSUs. They're probably going to be more flexible there. I hope that's helpful for you. Okay, what else do we have? So, I think I already covered off Chris Delaney's question, so I'm just going to skip past that. Hey, Henry. So, regarding prepping your story for giving negative feedback, does that feedback need to be complex or advanced? Is it more important on how you talk about leveraging that feedback to improve? Yeah, Henry, you've got it absolutely right. It's really not about the complexity of the feedback. This is an earned trust question, and therefore it's all about how do you engage with first that act of feedback. They'll want to know that, like, what did you do in the moment? So how did you react? And then obviously, what did you do with that information? How did you internalize it, appreciate it? And then very specifically, what action did you take on the back of that feedback in order to be able to effectively address it? So no, it doesn't need to be complex or advanced. There's a point though, obviously. If, for example, the feedback, I'm just going to make something up. So if the feedback is something along the lines of somebody thinks you talk too fast, and okay, I tried to talk more slowly in meetings, that's limited in terms of what I can get from you in terms of my understanding of how you earn trust with that person. Something a bit more complex probably is warranted. So yeah, something about, maybe your feedback might be that this person feels that maybe you're a little bit defensive when you receive feedback, and gives you some examples of that. Then how you dealt with that in the moment, how you internalized, how you reflected on your experiences of the past and you were able to see that behavior in yourself, how you then potentially took remedial action with the people that you realized you maybe had done this with, and how you interacted with them to earn their trust again, then what tools you put in place to avoid yourself from doing that in the future. That's a bit meatier and a bit more complex. So there are definitely oversimple examples that you probably don't want to go with. But the example itself, the feedback itself, doesn't have to be hugely complex. It just needs to allow you to demonstrate all of the behaviors that the Earns Trust leadership principle is looking to see in you. You don't have to demonstrate all of them. Some of the behaviors that the Earns Trust leadership principle is hoping to see in you. Okay, thanks, Henry. Moving on then. Just looking for something else here, guys. Bear with me whilst I'm a little bit quiet at the moment. Okay, yeah, I'll cover this one off, Kathy. So a post from AZ Recruiter said, if you've interviewed for 3 positions and not received an offer, that you should stop for a year or so before retrying. My thoughts, or if you apply but do not get invited. Okay, This is a very grey area, Kathy. There are no hard and fast rules about this, which can make it really tricky for even for recruiters, because you'll hear different recruiters say different things, which is why I know it can be really confusing for candidates. Oh, I just need to do a time check as well. Gosh, is that the time already? My personal opinion is that if you have interviewed and failed 3 times, probably in a year or so, you should stop. And I say this primarily actually for your personal mental health. It's just not emotionally good for anybody to keep trying and not succeeding. In fact, I'm not going to use the word fail because I don't like that word. It's incredibly loaded and it suggests some kind of responsibility. And sometimes these things are completely out of your control and you did the very best that you could possibly do. So I'm not going to use fail. I'm going to use not succeeded. If you try something 3 times over and have not succeeded, I personally don't think it's good for your own mental health to keep trying. Giving yourself a break, giving yourself some time and some space is often quite healthy and re-energizing. So that's one reason why I say it. The second reason I say it then is everybody who you submit your resume to pulls up your full records from the hire system. And to see a cycle of ongoing not successes, now that doesn't work, right? A series of interviews that you have not made it through, they're going to look at it and say to themselves, if 3 times over this person hasn't managed to get themselves past the next round or get themselves hired, what is the probability that if I bring them back, that they are actually going to make it further? Evidence would suggest, Amazon is an organization that's all about evidence. Evidence would suggest that that is unlikely. And therefore, I would suggest, unless the position that they have is a completely different position to any of the ones that you've applied for recently, they're going to look at that and go, I'll probably pass on this candidate. So no hard and fast rule, Kathy, but I would offer the guidance to people to say, if you've tried 3 times and haven't succeeded, for your own sake, take a break. I think the likelihood of a recruiter wanting to interview you after those 3 slims down your probabilities. And if you take a break, you have the opportunity to get more experience and get more examples. You kind of now know what the Amazon people are looking for. So then maybe you can get more projects in that particular direction in the role that you're in at the moment and improve your odds of success for the next time. I hope that helped, Kathy. Okay, let me just look because we are at time, but I'm conscious I didn't make it down to the bottom at any point. So let me just see if there's anybody new. Oh, KK. I'm just going to put this one up because I always love to have one of these that I can put up on the screen in one of these sessions. So KK has accepted an offer for a program manager role at Amazon. You are absolutely, oh, my pencil's going to go off there. Congratulations, KK. Brilliant. Amazing achievement. Please, everybody, give KK a thumbs up. Congratulations. It's a tough process, but obviously Amazon has like 1 million people working for them, so it's entirely possible. So I hope everybody, that gives you some confidence that yes, it does happen. And KK, well done for all of your hard work. If you've made it through, you obviously put a huge amount of effort into it. So congratulations, well done. Okay, so let me just think. Okay, so guys, we are at time now. So before I close things down, let me just share this with you. So I offer everybody completely free my Customer Obsession Masterclass and my Amazon Interview Whiz Academy. I could never get this bit right, at my Amazon Interview Whiz Academy. Obviously, I do it because I would love you to enjoy my content and then buy more of it. But equally, customer obsession is the most important leadership principle. Every one of you, if you make it all the way through to the end of the process, will at some point be tested on customer obsession. So if I'm going to give away anything, the thing to give away that will help the most people is customer obsession. So please head down to my website, snaffle yourself that leadership principle masterclass. I promise I won't chase you for marketing. I know that's usually the purpose of these things, but I do not do that. So thank you very much for joining, guys. Thank you for all of your questions. Thank you to the new people that joined on LinkedIn. That worked really well. And I will hopefully see you guys either this time again on Wednesday, or I have another session on Monday. So until then, please be safe, look after yourself. If you have interviews coming up, I wish you the very best of luck. Take care. Bye-bye.